It's ever been easier to support independent voices and experience the Portland Film Festival. Simply grab your Xfinity voice remote and say Portland Film Festival.
Next, the Watch With app appears with all the content at your fingertips. Enjoy behind-the-scenes access to free films created by a diverse array of talented independent filmmakers.
Willie, there are so many great movies to watch from the comfort of our own home, and experiencing the Portland Film Festival has never been easier.
Hi there, Portland Film Festival. My name is Sarah King, and I'm the director and producer of Our Dad Danielle, which is a documentary feature about Danielle Joy Healy, her wife of over 30 years, their 2 daughters, in Sugar Land, Texas. We chart Danielle after she comes out at 57 years old as a trans woman, and how it affects her family and also her law career. We also get to interview some people like Sasha, Jerry, and Andrea, and we get to see what it's like to be a trans woman in a place like Texas. This film is about a lot of things. It's about trans rights, it's about family, it's about finding yourself no matter what the age, and the beauty that comes from self-acceptance. We hope that this film resonates with you, that you'll seek out how you can help other trans people around the U.S. and the world, because their rights are being attacked daily. 70% of Americans haven't met a trans person knowingly. And we hope with this film that you feel like you've met some. We hope you enjoy watching it, and we hope you like it. All right, thank you very much.
My name's Henry Mortensen. I directed a feature-length documentary called Skating Polly Ugly Pop about a band and a family called Skating Polly, who have been playing for over 10 years but are still only in their early 20s. They play a style of music called Ugly Pop. It's beautiful, but it still has all the rough edges, still has the blemishes showing, hasn't been airbrushed. Their personality is still in there. Sometimes it's sort of loud and punk, sometimes it's quiet and melodic or even folky. Their earnestness has inspired a lot of other musicians to take them sort of under their wing or just to play with them, like X and Kate Nash and Babes in Toyland. I find them really inspiring, and I hope you enjoy learning more about them.
I feel like something's missing, like half my heart's asleep. And if I keep on wishing, I will wake up to a dream where the colors are all brighter and there's a place for me. I gotta know who I am meant to be.
Hello, welcome to the Portland Film Fest. It's sadly the last of the series of Meet the Director Q&A. We've had such a great time. We've had so many great guests, talked to so many great directors about great films, and it's just, the fest has been running for 5 weeks and the winners have been announced, so this will be our last. Let's make it a good one. But before I get into that, we'd like to thank our sponsor Comcast for its 5th consecutive year of tremendous support. Without Comcast, we would not be able to curate 325 independent films from all around the world, films by all sorts of filmmakers, highlighting Latinx filmmakers, women's voices, Black filmmakers, perspectives in mental health, Indigenous voices. So again, thanks to our sponsor Comcast. Please check out the virtual lobby at Portland Film Fest to find out more about Comcast. But let's get into it. We have a lot of cool films and cool filmmakers and a lot to talk about today. Our first film and our first guest is Moon River by Andrew Zimbelman. Well, hi.
Hi,
Andrew. How are you?
Okay, how are you?
Welcome to the Portland Film Fest.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, great. And thanks for submitting Moon River. It's an animated short, correct?
It is an animated short, yeah.
Great. So, why don't we take a look at a clip from the film and then we'll get into it.
All right, sounds great.
Let's see. Well, until that clip comes up, let's chat. So,
Okay.
yeah, how long have you worked in animation?
Oh, animation for quite a while. I'm a professional animation director is kind of my day job. And I've been independent going on 10 years now, probably. So yeah, I've been doing it for quite a while.
That's great. So animation is a very tedious process. Can you talk to us about how painstaking it is to create even a 4-minute animated short?
Yeah, absolutely. Depending on the process and the medium that you're using, animation can be more time consuming than, than not. But for me, I do a lot of digital animation. So it's a lot happens in the computer, a lot on paper and stuff at first, but then it's often digital and I create digital puppets and stuff. So but it could take, for even a 4-minute film, it can take months and months depending on the complexity and the process.
Right. Well, I've heard so much about how painstaking it is. As a writer, writing is one thing, but I know that the tedium and the the skill needed for animation is tremendous. So let's take a look at your film, Moon River.
Okay, thanks. Oops.
Here we go. Well, there we go. So I'm really interested to know that, say, 3 or 4 second clip. How much
Mhm.
time did that take in terms of your process?
Oh gosh, hard to break down exactly that specific part of the film, but because the whole film is storyboarded out, right? So it starts with designing style frames and illustrations to kind of figure out how the film's going to look, how's it going to feel, and then you storyboard out the whole film, even in rough sketches. So that process could take, and then you get into the actual production of it and building those characters, whether you're drawing it frame by frame or you're building digital puppets where you're rigging up a character and controlling the wrists and controlling the body parts. But that shot alone could take, that was all digital, so that shot alone could take weeks.
I see. That's incredible. Even with all the software and the apps you have, it's still,
Yeah.
it's craft and it's an art.
Mhm.
So, this is a short. This is a story about loss and love. Um, do you find was this based on a personal experience? Were you sort of working through something, or just a story that you came across that you wanted to turn into a short?
Yeah, the film, it definitely comes from a very personal place. It's inspired by the classic song with the same name, Moon River, as well as the personal significance that that song kind of has for the 20-year journey that my wife and I have kind of traveled to get to where we are now. And so while its origin is a personal one, I was hoping to kind of also through symbolism and abstraction kind of create something that maybe a lot of viewers could see themselves in as well. But it was sparked out of this moment in our life of moving. So my wife introduced me to Moon River when we were high school sweethearts, basically. And so it's always, she loved Audrey Hepburn and showed me Breakfast at Tiffany's for the first time. And it's always been bathed in this lens of nostalgia for us. And during this big life shift, we moved from Brooklyn, moved our whole family back to our hometown across the street from that high school. And so it was this moment of a huge shift and change on a personal level for us. And I was just kind of ruminating a lot about kind of our journey and kind of how we started and where we came, how we got to where we are now, knowing that full well that path was anything but painless and smooth and easy. And one day I was just listening to actually Frank Ocean's track because that was in my daily playlist, his cover of Moon River. And that sparked everything, kind of this idea of like, living across the street from like where our relationship started and this long journey now with 2 kids and moving back. And I got this idea of like, maybe this song could be this kind of little trigger to kind of, for my next independent short film, that could be the blueprint. And that's kind of the origin, kind of where it began.
Well, that's quite an answer from Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't know who wrote the original song, to Frank Ocean, to this really charming short. But again, I think that a lot of people are interested in the process of animation, as am I. So let's take a look at a clip we have about the process of making this film. Well, until that clip comes up, let's just keep chatting.
Yeah, sure.
You were
There we go.
I guess that's the storyboard, or
Mhm. That's the finished one of the finished clips of the film.
oh, that's fantastic. So, God, such a romantic, such a sweet story. In your day job as an animator,
Mhm.
how would you describe the difference? And do you work on that kind of subject matter, or are you just doing other sorts of things?
It's a mix, really. I do all kinds of stuff, but often I find that my independent films, my independent shorts, are a great way for me to experiment and explore different themes, motifs, and personal projects that then I can put in my portfolio, and that can also develop out my portfolio to where clients can come to me and say, "Oh, that's really interesting technique. That's a really interesting process. He really can deal with this kind of subject matter in a developed way. We'd love to have him do something for us," so it's sort of my business model is like client work, independent work, to hopefully get more types of client work. And I try to make sure independent work that hopefully will get me the kinds of work that I'd like as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, as a creative person, it's always that sort of process, that hustle. I think one thing about animation, I think that in America we tend to think animation, we think DreamWorks. But there's so much great animation coming out of Asia. I mean, I've seen some things in other projects, and I think as well as France and for some reason Eastern Europe. I think from what I've seen in festivals, there's so much of that. Are any of these types, and there are various subgenres of animation? Are there any other filmmakers or movements that really inspire you, or that are your favorites?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that you think of DreamWorks. I mean, animation is really, it's not a genre, right? It's a medium. And I think that in our country, especially around the world, you think of animation, you're like, okay, Disney or Pixar and
Right.
DreamWorks. But I grew up watching all that stuff, and I never thought about getting into animation. It never made me want to become an animator or in that medium. And I was always a fine artist. I loved drawing and painting. So I went to art school, and in undergrad, I discovered the work of William Kentridge, who's a South African artist. Really, he wouldn't even consider himself an animator, but he does stop motion charcoals on a single sheet of paper for his films. And that just made my brain explode about what animation could look like and what it could be in a way that I'd never seen before. And that opened up my doors to all the independent filmmakers and animators, people like Yuri Norstein and Carolyn Leaf and George Schwartzkobel. And that I just dove headfirst into that, and then went into grad school for animation, experimental animation, to kind of learn more about it. The independent, I love the short form. I really love the way that each film can kind of be its own thing and its own experimental exploration in a new part of the medium. And every film, it looks different. So it's kind of like that kind of artistic fine art mindset, bringing that to film. Not that I don't I love Pixar and I love Disney and DreamWorks. They're great too, but it's just another realm that I just feel the medium is so much more robust and so much more capable of things that we don't even give it credit for.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the great things about these Q&As with directors. You get to learn about all these influences and how much goes into one's work, the study, the practice, other influences. It's really enlightening, and I'm sure everyone loves it as much as I do. But on that subject, let's look at one more clip from Moon River so we can take a look at this artistry. It'll be up in just a sec. Here we go. Well, that's a lovely clip and such lovely music. I wish we could speak more. I'd love to hear more about the score.
Yeah, I just
wanted
wanted
how you like the intellectual property aspect. It's always an issue. The
score is by. I just wanted to, before I go, the shout out to Josh Smowick, who made the score down at Eastward Music. He was my partner in the film, and he did really incredible job.
Absolutely. I'd love to chat more with you, but we have several guests to chat with.
Yep.
So can you briefly just tell us what your next projects are?
I'm working on just some client-driven commercial stuff right now, and working on between client stuff, I try to carve out time to make my own independent work. And I'm definitely at that stage right now of just ruminating and thinking through a lot of different ideas and early pre-production stuff and coming up with my next project.
Yeah, that phase is so important. People pod, but that phase of creative work is so important, just like coming down and just thinking, So thank you so much, Andrew, for joining us. Thank you so much for submitting this lovely film to the Portland Film Fest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and
really
hopefully
wonderful to be
next year, absolutely next year, we'll have to see your next project. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Moving right along to our next guest, another short. Welcome, Jamie Parslow of the short Black Hole. Hi, Jamie. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great. So, where are you dialing in from?
I'm in Studio City in Los Angeles.
Okay.
In our little apartment.
And were you ever New York based?
No, I wasn't. No. I don't think I've been to New York a few times, but no, I'm not New York based.
Well, it's just a joke of mine that I feel like everyone, who's had it like an archetypal New York apartment fears that there is a black hole. That it is a black hole, so
No,
just aside.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
Yeah, but wrong I am, but nonetheless, this is a great short, and we have several clips. We are going to show the first clip from Black Hole in just a second.
Cool.
Then we'll get into it.
No worries.
There's a black hole in my house. And I don't know what to do. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it's here. All I know is that it's certainly a black hole.
Oh my God. So, I'm like really obsessed with, what I think is in the zeitgeist at the moment. And something about black holes, wormholes, sinkholes, like so many things.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about, you wrote this short as well?
I did, yes.
So yeah, what was the idea behind this?
It's interesting. I was in sort of a weird space where I had left my last job and I was in between jobs. And I think it was just it was a lonely night. And I kept having these recurring dreams about a black hole, and in someone's home. And so I was like, well, I'll just write whatever that is. And I think it took me, half a night to write it. And then I sat on it for 6 months before I showed it to anybody else. And once I did, everybody was like, let's go, let's make this thing. So it was really kind of fun in that way. I was in a dark place. That's the best way to put that.
I kind of get that. It's very existential, black hole. I mean, it's not up to a lot of interpretation, but
right.
Also the whole thing. Have you noticed this, that there's John in the Hole? I don't know if you've heard of this film.
No, I haven't.
311. It's about a boy who keeps his family in like a sinkhole in his backyard. There's so many other shorts and indies this year that feature holes. So this is my own obsession. Don't mind that.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Yeah. So you wrote and directed this.
Yes.
The short. Do you have a crew of people you usually work with for your shorts?
Absolutely. So Aaron and I have, we actually haven't collaborated on anything in quite some time, but we met at a film festival when we were teenagers. Mm-hmm. So we've been pretty good friends for, I don't know if I want to say how many years. But then the director of photography, Evan Zissimopoulos, as well. He's been an old friend of mine since high school as well. And then the producer, Reed Nicewonder. We met about 10 years ago as well on another movie that I was acting in. So we're a really tight knit group. And we pulled in. We basically just asked friends. We were like, hey, anybody want to help out? And sure enough, we had a ton of volunteers, which was great.
Awesome. So how many shorts have you guys done together?
Well, we did a short last year. Not all of us, but a few of us did a short that premiered at Portland last year called Patch. It was about a boy who builds a robot in the early 90s in the desert. And so we've done that. And then my previous job, we did short films. It was actually my job to do short films. So we did probably 30 plus short films at some point in time. So it was kind of wild, honestly.
That's a huge body of work. That's great. So let's take a look at, we have another clip of Black Hole. Let's take a look.
Great.
Something wasn't right. I knew that it had taken over my every thought, my every waking moment, ringing in the back of my mind every single instance of each day, gnawing at me. I had to get out of there.
Oh yeah, very existential. And can you tell me how long the shoot was for Black Hole?
Yeah, we did 2 days. I was hoping to get it done in 12-hour days, but I think they ended up stretching up to closer to 14. But we did it in 2 days over the course of a weekend. I think Friday was prep day, and then Saturday, Sunday we shot. Yeah, we shot it really only between two locations. We had the house, which was the house that I had previously moved into when I moved out here for the first time like 8 years ago. But now that Evan lives there, and so with like the art, the production designer Ryan Berman, and Frankie Bifulco, who was the gaffer on that one. And then we sort of hopped over to Glendale after we were shooting in Burbank and shot in a really itty bitty sort of warehouse for the void sequences. And so we basically just shot I don't even know how to explain it. We got like a top down light, and we got some like laminated black flooring. And then we just hazed it up inside of there and shot it that way. So it was actually really, it was a tight shoot. It was, but you know, it was fun.
That is quite a riddle. How does one photograph a black hole? You know, that's
Yeah,
you kind of can't do that. I don't know, but
it was a challenge.
Yeah, you and Nolan, I think Interstellar, he goes into a black hole and somehow they film that. Remember?
Right. Yes,
that's great. Well, I'm so glad to hear that you had a relatively sort of non-chaotic shoot. Did you shoot during COVID?
No, so it's so funny. A lot of people have been like, "Oh, well, this is a COVID movie." And I was like, "No. I wrote this in 2019, and then we didn't get to shooting until February of 2020."
You just did it right before. Lucky you.
Yeah, so it was. I think it was in February. So we were hearing rumblings of what was going down, and we were like, okay, well, we should probably shoot this before something goes weird. So that's kind of what we figured out. Nobody knew what was going to happen. We didn't know that there were going to be lockdowns or, or anything like that. So we were just like, let's do this and be as safe as possible. We were, doing hand sanitizer and trying to make sure that we weren't and we had disposable cups at the time, as best as we could figure out like how not to spread anything. That was our goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I have friends who shot a micro budget feature, had it scheduled for summer of 2020, and his entire budget just like went through the window because he had to all of a sudden account for a budget. COVID protocols in his budget, all the testing. So you were really lucky, and it was even for a short film and a small crew, you still have to, take these protocols.
You got to take care of the people that you're working with and make sure that they're all safe and healthy and happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the news of the last 2 weeks has shown that how important crew and cast safety are.
Very much so. Yeah.
Have you ever worked on a production with guns?
Yeah, I used to actually be an assistant director. So for many years. So I've worked with all kinds of, weapons and stunts and, explosions and that kind of a thing. So it's a pretty, when you're in that position, you have to take it really seriously and make sure that you're taken care of. But I also worked as a grip for many years too. And so safety was a priority then. And so as you move up, if you're lucky enough to move to producing or directing, you start to learn, especially if you've started at like a really, really low end, you start to learn just how much people's time and their health and their even just their general happiness is, can boost an entire production. So I try to make sure that we're doing cookouts or, I'm buying beers for the crew or like whatever it may be to make sure that we're saying we're not taking, these are really long. We understand it. We're trying not to take advantage of the situation. We are trying to give back as much as we can. So it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's like the convergence of things in the zeitgeist. You have the IATSE negotiations that were in the news like a week before the shooting, and and it's just like, to the industry, take care of your people, take care of your crew, your cast, and we'll all be better for it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think we have one more clip from the Black Hole to show. I'm sure we'd all love to see that. I know I would. Let's cue that up. That's cute, huh?
At first, I thought it was nothing. But I got a second opinion.
I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm gonna touch it, though.
So I left it alone.
That's cute. Just a night out with your girlfriend in the black hole in the corner.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Well, it's so... Sorry?
No, I just want to give a shout out to Aaron and Alexa and Leo for being there. And then we had a cat named Fred that was awesome as well. And then our musician Dan Martinez was phenomenal at like making that feel right. So
no, that's great. It's always great to shout out the people that work with you that help your projects come to life. And as we said, treat people well, and that's part of it. So and you have it's so great. You have this like tight knit crew, and it really helps smooth the wheels of production. That's great to hear. And but you also mentioned you're a veteran of the Portland Film Fest. So that's great. So I'm sure next year, your next short or feature, whatever, we're going to be right back here next year.
I hope I can get on it soon then, because I'm in like Andrew, I'm in a sort of rumination phase and trying to get something.
Oh, are you? Okay. So I guess my question of next projects has already been answered. Yeah, well, that's how it goes. But if you wrote this and left it in a drawer for a while, I'm sure you have something else up your sleeve. So it's been great having you. You want to shout out your socials or something for?
Sure. I mean, you can follow Black Hole at black hole underscore, or I think it's black _hole _ short film on Instagram, or just follow me at JA Pars. You'll get all the other, I update the same things. Or follow me on Jamie Films at Twitter, if you can.
Well, it's great. It's been great having you. Great having a Portland Film Fest veteran. And it's been a great chat. We'll see you next year. Thanks
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Grace Kelly, and I'm the director of Superheroes. Superheroes presents us with a world where everybody with a disability is given a superpower. So we get to see a whole bunch of superheroes navigate the social intricacies of being a national icon, but also a person with a visible or non-visible disability.
A lot of people say that I don't look autistic, but autism is a spectrum and you can't really look autistic.
This film was a ton of fun to make because of all the wonderful, creative, talented individuals that I got to work on it with. Every single aspect of production was over Zoom, and we had to make it within 5 days because it was part of the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. But I think what is the most rewarding aspect of being a part of this film is just to see all the talent and passion that was put into it. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, welcome back. That was a clip from Superheroes by Grace Kelly. And we have none other than Grace Kelly here with us. Welcome, Grace Kelly.
Thank you. Good to be
I get so excited when I saw your name on the, I'm sure people do that a lot.
Yes.
So your film is curated in several sections this year. You are one of the rising voices, and it's also the specially curated section for ability and disabled voices, correct?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
That's great. So can you tell us a little bit about getting this project off the ground?
Yeah, so it was kind of a really last minute thing. Actually, my co-producer and friend and co-writer, Samantha Hyde, just kind of emailed me, and she was like, hey, I want to do this disability film challenge thing. I have this script. I don't know, maybe we could put it together. And I was like, okay, cool, thinking this is like a tentative thing, and she goes, by the way, it's like next week. And so I'm like, oh. So we kind of just like put it together really fast. I was taking midterms that same week and starting a new job. And we just had to do every aspect of production within those like 5 days. And it was crazy, but it was a lot of fun and really rewarding. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really grueling, as production typically is. Can you tell us how you went about finding your subjects and the challenges of doing so?
Yeah. So we kind of put out like an open call with different agencies that work with disabled actors and filmmakers. My friend Samantha has a lot of connections in that area. So it was really cool. We got to work with some people that are on the show Atypical, which is another source of media that promotes disabled filmmakers and actors, and other films that promoted disabled voices, which is really cool. So I feel like I got to meet a whole bunch of awesome celebrities while working on this film because of the cool talent that we got to meet.
Great. Just so for those of you tuning in, we are looking at stills from Superheroes by Grace Kelly, which is specially curated in our Voices of Ability section, as well as our Rising Voices section. We're just chatting with her about making this film. So, I mean, I've seen a lot of these docs that are, and even, features, whatever, that are all shot on Zoom.
Yeah.
That seems to be a new genre, right?
I know, it kind of is a new genre. A lot of the films that were in the Easter Seals Challenge were shot on Zoom. I think that's such a fun, creative little obstacle that you get to jump over and make it work. I thought that it was really cool, and other filmmakers in the challenge did a really good job of making that creative and fun as well.
Yeah, it's really a thing now. Even auditions over Zoom.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at another clip from the film.
Diagnosed as an adult, correct?
Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
I guess I knew myself better after that, and people started to understand me better too. That's when I really started to get in control of my powers, actually. Not all at once.
Yeah, that's super fun. And you really made that part work for you. Something I always ask about documentaries, were there any moments when you felt that it was most appropriate to turn off the camera or cut away certain things because it was too intimate, or there was something too raw about a certain scene?
So this was like a mockumentary format. So it was scripted in a way that we didn't really get to have those conversations on camera. But I think something that's so special and intimate about this type of film, where we're working with minorities and kind of suppressed voices, is like a subtext of the entire thing, right? It's like this is constantly a battle for people to get representation in media that should have representation because they're a huge part of our population, right? So I think, like, luckily these people are just so awesome, and they're able to bring their talent and their disability to the screen with such an awesome attitude. But also, like, it's kind of the reason that it's there is to bring awareness to the problem that there aren't a lot of projects that are promoting real disabled people when telling disabled stories. So I think that is something that constantly needs to be, documented more, if anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week there was another doc, and it was a woman who made a doc about a theater troupe of disabled actors, also curated in the Voices of Ability section. And it was just, I was very curious about, their process. This was like a small community theater, but, I was hoping at some point that maybe some of them will continue their careers.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what the outlook is in the industry for, all sorts of representation, number one, of people of ability, as well as the actual roles.
Yeah. I think that we're slowly starting to, as a society, get more comfortable with the idea that, like, not everything is perfect, and we're kind of reshaping the idea of what Hollywood glamour looks like, and we're kind of starting to fall towards relatability as our preferred content, instead of like polished, perfect, etc. And so I think that's an exciting prospect and an exciting movement that's happening, and I think that movement has a lot of room for disabled actors. So and filmmakers. So I hope that I see more of that as we, continue with this art form.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see where there are more and more films, projects, etc., featuring various able people. And I think that it's really gaining momentum in the industry, and that people are starting to pay attention because they have to.
Yeah.
And films like yours, really help that conversation and really help platform that issue.
Thank you.
So thanks for making the film. Thanks for submitting it to the Portland Film Fest. What are you working on next?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Costa Rica on a humanitarian project teaching kids in poverty English to try to help them get better opportunities in their life. And I'm making a documentary about that. So that'll probably be my next big film project.
That's fantastic. Would you like to shout out the film on the socials?
Yeah, so it doesn't have a name or anything, but I will be updating my socials. You can follow me on all social media pages at Grace Kay, which is GRAICEKAY.
That's awesome. We certainly will do that. It's been so great having you. And then again, thanks for submitting this film to the Portland Film Fest.
Yes, thanks for having me.
And for, giving such great content to this specially curated Voices of Ability section. I think people are really loving it and responding to this.
Thank you
so much, Grace Kelly. Thanks. Moving along to our next film and our next guest, we will be speaking to Maureen Judge and her film, My Millennial Life. Hello, Maureen.
Hi, nice to meet you and talk to you.
It's so great having you here. So you are an alum, a veteran of the Portland Film Fest. You submitted something in 2016?
Yes, My Millennial Life played in 2016, so I feel really honored to be back with it again. I think it's also a film that has continued to be relevant, especially with COVID, because of the fact that so many people are unemployed and so many people's lives were on hold during this period or have been on hold. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. Thanks for submitting. I don't know, do we have any clips of this? So I'd like to show a clip. We'll let them cue that up while we chat.
Okay, sure. Do you want me to tell you what it's about, or?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll watch
these puppies. Run about $120 a pop, but like this one says there's 0 doses, but you can hear there's powder in there. It drives me nuts. I've smashed a few of them apart, but once it's out of there, it's hard to breathe the powder. You're not I don't know, maybe you could snort it or something.
There we go. That was a clip. So yeah, let's discuss. What would you like to tell us about the
Okay, sure. I'll tell you what we just saw. Basically, the film has 5 different 20-something-year-olds in it. I filmed them over a year. It's an observational documentary, and I wanted to hear what people who were just coming into the workforce, who had finished school or dropped out of school, what they were feeling, because a lot of people were dumping on millennials at this time, and one of my children was at the time a millennial, and I just thought that I wanted to hear from them, because I think we weren't hearing from them, we were just hearing from everybody else, and there was a real disconnect between the expectations the millennials had and what the reality was. And the reality was that there were almost 50% who were unemployed or underemployed. And of course, with the gig economy today, this has continued. So that's what, and here we see Emily, who at this time in Canada, it's different now, the law has changed, but she had no more money for her puffer and she had really bad asthma and she couldn't afford to get another one. So it's kind of very funny what she's saying, but in fact, it's quite, it was quite radical and drastic that she would have to, try to find medicine in her puffer when it was all gone. So, and she had no money to buy anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that, we tend to look at the various generations in terms of culture, but, it's really about economics. Gen X is really about culture, also economics, but the gig economy, something we thought was, oh, great, it's this freedom to do all these various things, and it's actually not. It's great that you have this economic lens on this generation, because the gig economy is kind of it's almost a dirty word now. So let's look at another clip from that, and let's see some of the other millennials in this film.
Relationships move slow back in the day because you had horse and buggy back in the day.
Yeah.
Now we got the internet, so we move quick. It moves proportionally.
It's a method of speed dating.
See, we have a methodology in the business world, and it's called fail fast, right? So you figure out if it works, and you figure it out quickly, because you don't want to spend too much time on the wrong idea.
I don't think we're really planning on the fail fast thing.
You never, well, that's the thing, you never plan on the fail.
Well, that is tragicomic tone if I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
That's really.
Well, you know, I always look for humor. I mean, for me, humor says everything, and humor can also express a lot of pain. So, yeah, so there's quite funny moments throughout the whole film. And James is he's actually a tech person. I tried to have different people from different backgrounds. He's somebody who actually left university to do a startup. And so he's working through that. And at the same time, and people watch the film and they think, oh, James has it all. But in fact, James' father is supporting him throughout this whole journey for him because he doesn't have any money. So he's working with Google. So he has not paid money, but they've given him a space at this point during the film. But so there's often, again, we see one thing, but the reality is not what we all see.
I mean, that's really what the purpose of documentary is, to find things and look at them, and under a certain lens, you know, you see different stories unfold. I'm really curious about how you found your subjects, if you did a traditional casting process.
Right. Well, actually, I probably interviewed, and I also worked with a couple of researchers who helped me find these subjects. We did a lot of work through social media. So we reached out to different kinds of groups or to different Facebook groups. We also sent, actually, Emily was a tenant in my house. So she had the basement apartment. So that's how I knew her. And I thought she'd be perfect. And she was also moving out. So I knew that I could ask her, because it might have gotten difficult if she lived in my house and it didn't work out. Of course, it did work out, but she had already moved out by then. So it was great. And she wasn't doing much. So she said, oh, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. I don't have a job. And then we follow her through and what she does do. And when she finds a job, she goes back to school. James, I found through a tech group. We found him on social media. He was interested because he had a new, he was trying to promote something. But in fact, I said, we're not promoting that, but we'd be really interested in talking to you and following your journey. So, yeah, so I talked to so many different people to find just the right mix, and once you cast the first person, then it gets easier, if I may say the word cast, to find the next one and then the next one. And because you never want the same stories, but you want some of the same challenges.
Right, exactly. I mean, I'm thinking of that really infamous British documentary series, 47, where they film the kids over a course of like
7 Up. Yeah.
What is it,
7 Up.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I mean, it's 21 Up. Like you go, Michael Apted is the director, and yeah, he really does a fantastic. Well, I think he passed away actually, but he does a fantastic job with following different individuals as they grow up, and of course, that's a lot about the class structure, in England. So
yeah, I mean, I couldn't help but see some sort of parallel in that. I would just bring that up.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. You know, a documentary is it can be such an intimate sort of experience, filming people in, you know, in these raw, unscripted moments. Were there any moments where you felt were too raw, too intimate, that you turned the camera off, or that you cut from the film?
No, I did actually. I don't know if you have this clip, but there were some pretty intense moments that did happen. But I never, I don't generally turn the camera off unless someone asks me to, but otherwise it's in the edit when I start really filtering what works and what doesn't. And I find that things tend to work as long as you keep the context. It's when you take things out of context that they start becoming kind of red herrings, or they start becoming kind of ethically questionable. So yeah, but there's always those moments that are very moving moments, and that kind of we see a change, and we see a change in the character. So it's, you know, hopefully you don't have to lose those moments. I mean, one of them was when one of the characters is moving out. She's having dinner with her family, and she's telling them that she's moving away with her boyfriend, and her mother's very worried. But of course, her mother's also mirroring the mother who doesn't want to give up her child, doesn't want her child to grow up. So, you know, there's a struggle there. There's a struggle that she's worried about her boyfriend, but she's actually worried as a mother about her child growing up and leaving her and what will happen to her. So,
right, these are really critical issues in documentary. You know, just the ethics of what a camera does to impact a story, storyteller, the subject. It's great that you can speak about that. I mean, that's so key to this form of filmmaking and form of storytelling. That's
absolutely.
Great. Yeah. So, can you tell us what your next projects are?
Well, I'm just starting one, but I finished one recently called 17 and Life Doesn't Wait. And it was influenced by My Millennial Life in the sense that I had just finished doing the 20-somethings. And I thought, well, what's happening in high school? What's happening with the girls in high school? I started getting really interested in that. Partly, again, it was partly because it was close to me with my daughter. And I kind of thought the world would be open to her in every way where it wasn't always to me. And I thought, oh, that would be interesting. So I filmed 3 teens in their final year of high school, 3 seniors. And we followed them over a year and looked at sort of the transformation and the opportunities and challenges they had, and also their dreams and how they were fulfilled or not fulfilled. So that was really inspiring. It was wonderful. The girls were beyond, I mean, like the ones in My Millennial Life, really, they were just, all of them showed so much spunk and get up and go. And resilience to the different kinds of situations some of them were in. So yeah, so that's what I did. So now that that's out, I'm thinking of doing something around systemic sexism in the medical system. So I'm really just starting, like I'm just beginning that. So, you know.
Well, that's really funny. I wonder what your high school age daughter is thinking. Oh, Mom, you can't film a documentary in my high school. I wonder. Or maybe not.
Yeah, I didn't go to her high school. Actually, I did. One of the subjects is from Florida. One of them is, and 2 of them are in Toronto from different schools. So they were from disparate schools because they brought also very different things to the table. One was in art school, like a specialized art school. And yeah, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I wanted, because docs are really hot right now. You know, Netflix, you know, docs. I mean, they're all more true crime, but they're sort of moving away into other subject matter. And do you feel like docs get the love that they deserve?
Yeah, I think they do now. I don't know that they always did, but the thing is, I would get so involved in what I was doing, and I love my characters or my subjects so much. Well, I didn't always love them all, but I loved working with them, and I generally had a certain kind of respect for them. So for me, it was all consuming and all. So I didn't really worry about whether anyone cared, except that, of course, we needed to get licenses, we needed to get funded. So I think funding now is much, there's more possibilities. And I think that's fantastic, which I guess means there's more love.
Well, that leads to my next question. You know, funding. Funding is so important to indie filmmakers. Can you tell us briefly about the funding for this film, the challenges, or was it crowdfunded?
Okay, well, for my Millennial Life, I was funded through a broadcaster. So I was funded through a TV Ontario, which is like a PBS in the States. This is in Canada. So it's our provincial broadcaster in Ontario, and also our provincial educational broadcaster in British Columbia. So they basically funded it, and then that triggers all kinds of other fundings. And then I also got, for that, I believe I got some Hot Docs funding. So between that, the Canadian Media Fund, which is triggered by the broadcaster, that was kind of how I pulled it together. And then we also have tax credits. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, it's a lot of funding to put together, and from a lot of disparate sources. But there was a lot of interest in this, as it turned out. I did a reel and showed the characters or the people that I wanted to be in it, and it sparked the interest of a lot of people. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you had to say was Canada. I mean, you have such great funding for the arts, for programs. Every Canadian filmmaker I speak to, especially in the fest, I've interviewed several. Funding, government grants, tax credits. I mean, 90, almost 100% financed through some sort of support, soft money, whatever you want to call it. So that's really great. We actually all other filmmakers. You're very fortunate, and American filmmakers. We're very jealous. So
it's okay. You've got the distribution. We don't have the distribution, but we do have the funding. So yes, we are very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, everything, there's a cost for everything, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's been so great having you, and it's so great having this film. And I love docs, and especially about the way people live and young people, teens and everything, and millennials. I don't know. Do people make Gen X movies anymore? Does anyone care about Gen X? I don't know. But
I don't know. My 17-year-olds would fit under that. I just didn't do it as like a Gen X, but because they weren't looking for a voice. Whereas I think the 20-somethings really needed they needed to get their voices out. So, I mean, so do the younger people, but differently. It's a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's always. Again, I'm so glad the Canadian government and the various sources provided funding for this film, and I hope they do for your next projects. And I'm sure we will see them in subsequent years or next year at the Portland Film Fest again.
Yeah, and I love the festival. So thank you very much. Thanks, Portland. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Geisha, Marie, everyone. Thanks.
All right, thanks so much. It's been great having you.
Bye.
Take care. So moving on to our next film, our next guest, we'll be speaking to Stuart, who is the director of Dark Cloud Grey Area.
Hello, Portland. My name is Stuart Dugan. I'm the writer and producer of Dark Cloud Grey Area.
Hello, my name is Connor Riley, and I'm the director of Dark Cloud Grey Area.
Dark Cloud Grey Area is a visual record that is equal parts live concert film and documentary short, filmed in Glasgow, Scotland over a weekend for a budget of £0 and 0 pence.
It's about this guy's music project, The Quilter, about his pursuit of a music career, and about art and why we create.
There's lots of highs and lows.
Lots of twos and fros.
And lots of music that I've composed.
There's actually no juggling in the film.
In hindsight, we should have included some, because as you can see, Connor's very good at it.
Thank you so much for having us. We feel greatly privileged to be part of the Portland Film Festival.
And we hope you get a chance to see our film. I think that was the one.
Yeah.
Hello, that was a clip from Dark Cloud Grey Area. Hi, Stuart.
Hi, how you doing?
Great, welcome to the Portland Film Fest.
Thanks, thank you so much for having me.
Great, are you dialing in from Scotland?
I am Glasgow, Scotland, yeah. So it's been quite cold and rainy, but that tends to be what happens at this time of year. Well, it tends to happen all year round, to be honest. But
yeah, I kind of hear that's what's going on over there.
Well, yeah, Glasgow's quite different at the moment because we've got the COP26 thing happening. So it's like the big environmental summit. So all the world leaders have been here. So the whole city's a bit upside down, and there's been big demonstrations and marches and stuff. So it's been quite interesting.
Great. Are you out filming any of that?
Not really, no. I was working today, but I work in post-production mainly. The film project and everything was sort of like a one-off for me. I'm primarily a musician, which was kind of the focal point of the film. So the whole experience has been quite unique to me. But I'm sure there was lots of stuff filmed and shown around the world about it.
Oh, no, that's great. You can only do so much. You can't have a band, do post, and film docs in the street. But thanks for submitting this cool project. So seriously, zero budget? What is that about?
Well, it's basically, it was a sort of promotional tool that grew arms and legs until it became essentially a film. We had talked about, myself and Connor, who you would have seen in the introduction there. Connor is a filmmaker, a good friend of mine, and we talked about filming some kind of video project for the band, my music project, The Quilter. And we were initially just wanting to do that, to sort of take a bit of ownership of it and to create that for just content for socials. And then when the pandemic hit and everything started to kind of grind to a halt, it became apparent that live music in particular was an industry that was going to be affected for a long period of time. and seeing that a lot of other artists were probably going to be, by necessity, doing the sort of thing that we had planned on doing, we wanted to take a slightly different approach to it. And I sort of thought that if we were going to be doing something like that, it would be interesting to take a different approach to it and perhaps tell a bit more of my story and try and put as much of myself into it as possible, so that when people would then see the film or see the music, they would relate more to me as an artist and invest a bit more in the project beyond just maybe hearing a song and liking a song. So it was kind of an opportunity to do things a bit differently. So the people that we were working with, it was a really small team of people, but it was all just friends that work in the industry and like either in music or have a little bit of kind of film production background. So everyone was more or less working for free. And then we were really fortunate. The Castlemilk Youth Complex, which is the big kind of hall that we filmed it in, is a youth centre in an area of Glasgow, and the studio that I record my music in is based in that complex, and they were really kind in giving us the location. And beyond that, myself and Connor just kind of filmed it all and edited it all and put it all together. So there wasn't really any funding from anywhere other than just some good folk that were interested in doing an interesting project at a time when there wasn't really much to do.
I see. Well, that's quite a tease. My film is maybe zero budget, but it is such an interesting hybrid, a visual record, as you said. And I think we should take a look, and so we can, see, exactly what's going on in this film.
Cool.
Well, until the clip comes, they usually come as soon as I start talking again.
You don't tend to hear so much of the stories of people that really tried and for one reason or another just didn't quite happen.
I wrote your name in lowercase letters, burned in my brain and made me feel better.
People who had every intention of achieving great things. And
so there is just a taste of it. Such an interesting hybrid of music video or musical performance and this sort of lyrical monologue, confessional. I'm not sure how you'd rather refer to it.
Well, basically, the way that we did it, there was the actual full version of the film's about an hour and 10 minutes, and it's basically like a live concert. I suppose it would be like a collection of music videos. There's 9 songs, and we wanted to film them all differently and have a different kind of visual aesthetic, just so that, again, thinking that people are going to sit down and watch these. If you don't already know about me or my music, what would keep you engaged to actually listen all the way through? So we wanted to make it visually stimulating. And then in between, we had basically like, as you say, kind of like monologues or voiceover kind of narratives. And it charts my career of sorts as a musician. And it tells my story, but my story is basically used as a vehicle to describe what I imagine is quite a universal experience for artists, not just musicians, filmmakers, whatever your particular domain is, and perhaps the highs and lows of that process, and maybe not necessarily achieving what you'd wanted to achieve, and how that kind of process looks. That's kind of what that clip was referring to a little bit there from that section.
That's a very, that's a very raw and intimate answer, and a very raw, intimate, part of the life of any creative person. Does your work usually explore that, or do you usually stick to music?
Well, I usually stick to music, and it's often about that, but I would never be so explicit about it, I suppose. And that was one of the challenges, that it was quite raw and quite revealing, and I talked a lot about stuff that I haven't talked to a lot of people about, but that was kind of one of the appeals as well. There was a sort of therapeutic element, as there should be with all kind of art, what I was getting out of it, in telling my story. And what was actually really nice was, in the response to it, and the response from people seeing it, there was lots of people that shared similar stories with me, and were quite raw and quite intimate with details as well. So I kind of felt that sometimes, it does take a bit of courage and a bit of bravery, courage to kind of tell your story. But in doing so, not only did it do me a lot of good, it was nice to know that other people had seen a little bit of themselves in it as well, and that it perhaps helped them in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible what putting a camera on someone and just asking them a question, what that does. And just like sometimes the gates just open.
Well, it's quite interesting because a lot of the kind of documentary voiceover bits were written and then we just put visuals behind it. But the scene that you had there, Connor was literally like, why don't we just do like a small interview thing? And I think that particular section does end up being like the most revealing thing, where I haven't really had time to sort of sit and write and compose not only what I think or feel, but how I would like it to be presented and come across. And he did just kind of capture that in that little moment. So I think you're totally right.
That's great. I think we would love to see another clip and then we'll just dig into this a little more.
Sure.
Well, that was a great clip. I don't know what's wrong with me because I've been meaning to tell you the music is fantastic.
Oh, thank you very much. That's kind of you
Well,
to
it's
say.
really awesome. Like I'm not very, good with like picking out genre and artists. Like I'm so behind the times. I still listen to Portishead. Like that's my normal
cool.
go-to. But your music was fantastic. Can you tell us like what genre or what's the scene in Glasgow for music like these days?
Well, Glasgow in general is currently and has always historically been very good for music. There's lots of kind of bands that have started in Glasgow and that would be known kind of the world over. I always find that when you're talking about things being courageous and revealing, I think that one of the hardest questions is when someone asks you what kind of music you make or to put it in a genre. But essentially, the music that I make, it's always kind of very melodic. It's basically indie pop, indie rock, alternative pop, that sort of thing is how I would, if I had to put it in a box, that's how I would describe it.
Okay, great. I just, we've been doing a lot. There's a huge section this year in the fest, music videos, music performance, and it's so great to speak to musicians because everyone loves music. It's so fun and it's so evocative. So
Yeah,
it's really great to have you on and that you've been able to make this really interesting hybrid of sort of personal statement, revealing self-portrait, and concert video or video collection. That's really great.
Yeah, that was kind of the point. It was sort of like an opportunity to showcase the music, ideally to people that haven't heard it. And as I say, with the hope that people will then continue to follow the band, continue to follow the music side of it, but also just to kind of get to know a bit more about me and for me to kind of tell my story. And it was actually really great to have something to focus on. I'm not sure how it was in terms of restrictions where you were, but certainly last year in the UK and in Scotland, we had like a fairly strict lockdown. And so it was quite a long period of time that we ended up certainly not in our traditional working roles and certainly not able to play live music. That's only just come back fairly recently. So the whole project was a real lifesaver for me in terms of having something to focus on and work away at. And it was a completely new discipline for me as well. I'd edited a couple of music videos before, but trying to sink my teeth into something a lot more substantial like this was a fantastic experience. And off the back of that, I've actually ended up going and working in post-production now. So it has been like quite a life-changing experience for me. I was working in the service industry in a restaurant while I was doing music, and from doing this, it kind of gave me the confidence to think that this was something that I could pursue, and so that's kind of what I've been doing since. So it's been really great.
Well, yeah, and the lockdown here was pretty tough, very severe. I mean, New York. I'm in New York, so in the beginning it was pretty severe, very intense. But I'm just, and everyone has their own COVID lockdown story, but I'm so glad you were able to, find a way to make something fantastic out of it. And it sounds like you have sort of started a new trajectory in your career. Are you planning on more films like this or more other types of video projects? Aside from those?
I would certainly be interested in it. I have to say, I really found it really satisfying, and the film does kind of chart my music experience that I've had over the last sort of 10 years or so. But I'd never even considered doing something like this until I was kind of in the middle of doing it. And off the back of it, it's something that I would definitely be interested in doing again. Primarily, I was trying to pursue offline editing, which I'm kind of trying to do at the moment. But it's certainly something that I would like to do. And even if it's not a sort of brand new kind of thing that I would look to explore, using that kind of skill set for the music project and for the band and to chart stuff like that has been really, really helpful. And I just find it, I know for myself that when there's a band that I like or I get into or I want to know more about, stuff like this is the exact sort of thing that I would look for, whether it's on YouTube or wherever it exists. And I think that more and more artists, musicians specifically, are having to try and show more of themselves. Obviously, there's so much in the way of saturation for music and competition. And I just think that it's a slightly more interesting way to put your point across and perhaps more appealing than, a TikTok or something like that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned TikTok. I think this is way more gratifying than a TikTok, but especially
I suspect that more people would listen to my music if it was big on TikTok, though. So it goes both ways.
What's interesting is this year in the fest there was a section for short form video content, and there were a lot of TikToks submitted. I was a screener for the fest as well, so I've watched several TikToks. I mean, it's amazing what some people can do with 45 seconds.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not knocking TikTok. I think it's brilliant and engaging, but I think in terms of the impact that it's had on the music industry specifically, it's really changing the way that artists break now and can have big hits. And I don't think that it's just it's not necessarily something that applies to the type of music I make, but it's more there's nothing wrong with it per se. It's still a really great medium.
Right. I mean, I think the kind of what I've seen so far of your work and this film content footage and this kind of indie pop, it's revealing, it's intense, it's intimate, it's like a longer form. You want to just be in that venue, with the artists and everyone else sort of feeling and connecting to the music. And that's why you have this great film. And we thank you so much for submitting it to the Portland Film Fest.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me. The whole experience has been excellent. Obviously, I just wanted as many people to see it as possible, and to have this experience where people over an ocean on the other side of the world are getting to see it and talk about it is really exciting for me and really, really gratifying given the work that went into it. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll motivate a lot of people to hop on over to Glasgow for some indie pop. I know I'd love it. So can you shout out your socials for your band? Or
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the band's called The Quilter. So Quilter. And it's just Instagram at @the_Quilter and Twitter at @the_Quilter. And if you look it up on YouTube, there's music videos, or Spotify, there's music videos. And you can listen to the songs and stuff like that there.
That's great. Well, I will be checking that out on my Spotify.
Excellent.
We're so looking forward to your next project, and we hope you'll submit to the Portland Film Fest, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you next time around.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Stuart.
Cheers.
Thanks. Well, everyone, we're midway into this Q&A, week 5, last week. I'm so sorry. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll wrap up with our last few directors of the series. Thank you.
My name is Noemi Labrado Sanchez. I am 17 years old, and I am currently a senior in high school. I worked together with my sister and 2 of my cousins to put this film called First Time Home. In this film, you are seeing us getting ready to travel to southern Mexico to meet a lot of our family members over there who we've never met before. And one of those family members was our seriously ill great-grandpa. You are also going to get an idea of what it was like and what it's like to live and be an immigrant Indigenous family. You are also going to be able to see some struggles that we've had to go through to be able to get to where we are now. I really hope you guys enjoyed this film as much as we enjoyed to film it, and thank you so much for the support.
My name is Carlos Fernandez Puertolas, and I'm the writer and director of Frank and Emmett. Since I was very young, I've always been a huge fan of the Muppets. And as I grow older, I was always very inspired by the amount of work and dedications these artists put into their creations. As an animator myself, with over 20 years of experience in the film industry, I have always believed that when you work on characters for such long periods of time, you finish building a very real relationship. So I decided to write a short film exactly about that. Frank and Emmett follows Frank, a 70-year-old puppeteer, and Emmett, his colorful friend and musical partner. These two have built a very special bond through the years working together, and Frank realizes that Emmett deserves to know the truth about where he comes from. So he builds up the courage to tell him that he is in fact a puppet. What comes next is an existential conversation between an artist and his creation.
Hi, I'm Ryan Webb, writer, director, and co-producer of the dark comedy short film You Can't Use a Semicolon in a Suicide Note. Have you ever tried to write a suicide note only to discover that you're not any good at it? Or have you ever considered using a quote to open your suicide note? Writing a suicide note is hard, but Catherine Hess has the help you're looking for. Catherine Hess is a professional suicide note editor. Just call 555-555-555-555-555, and Catherine will help you to craft your perfect salutation to the world. I'd like to make it clear to the audience that I'm in no way trying to make light of suicide. This project was very personal and therapeutic for me. It's just my opinion that humor can make a difficult topic a little easier to talk about. I hope that we have more conversations about mental health and suicide, and maybe the more we talk about it, the less taboo it becomes, and the more comfortable people might be to reach out when they need help.
Hello, welcome back. This is the Portland Film Fest Meet the Director Q&A series. It's our very last Q&A, our very last hour. You know, I'm so verklempt. You know, we've had such a great fest. 5 weeks of screening great films, talking to great directors. But, you know, all good things must come to an end. And actually, we've just recently announced the winners of the Films of Competition. And it is my absolute pleasure to speak to the director of the winning doc, Street Heroines, Alexandra Henry. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Geshe Marie. Nice to see you again. Great to be back.
It's so great having you. Nice to see you again. For those of you who might have seen, I did a longer form Q&A with Alexandra about her film Street Heroines, including one of her subjects, the legendary Mexican street artist Fusca. And you can check that out after this, but we're just going to get into it a little bit for now. So how does it feel to be the winner of the doc category this year, the Portland Film Fest?
I don't think I've stopped smiling since I found out Wednesday night. It was such a shocker, but it's amazing. We're all super, super excited. So we've been celebrating, and we just, again, want to thank the Portland Film Festival. I want to thank my team, my production team, who that could not have been possible making this film and getting it out into the world. And also want to thank all of the artists, the amazing artists. You mentioned Fusco was on the Q&A with us a couple weeks ago. Two Fly, Magrella, Lady Pink, Martha Cooper, the list goes on. So I just wanted to give a special shout out to all of the amazing artists, and we're so, so honored.
Well, yeah, you should be, feeling great on cloud nine because you made a great documentary. And we're going to show a clip in a sec, but until then, you should know the Street Heroines is about women, street artists, graffiti artists, as some people call them. And Alexandra has made this great doc, and she follows legendary female street artists from the Bronx, from Queens, New York, down to Mexico City, Brazil, and Sao Paulo, Ecuador. When we cue up a clip, you'll see some of the great street art and some of these incredible women. But until then, we'll just keep talking to Alex about her film. So I think the clip is ready now. Let's take a look into it.
This is my opportunity to like come out and be that female version of like what the guys were doing.
Pues no me interesa como hacer esa distinción, graffiti de mujeres, graffiti de hombres.
I mean, I know I've been excluded for things because I wasn't like one of the guys.
Para mim, ser mulher ou não eu não vejo isso uma barreira, e sim, de repente, até como um facilitador.
I wanted to just kind of soften things in, you know, be part of it.
Eso me gusta mucho, como dar esa percepción de lo que puedes hacer fuera de tu concepto de lo que es ser una mujer.
Eu uso a minha arte para falar de questões que me incomodam. E eu sou uma mulher incomodada, então os meus personagens, as minhas mulheres, são incomodadas.
There's a different dynamic that happens when women get together and paint or create something. Annoying to be put in a box or some category of some sort.
Que estando en la calle te das cuenta de cómo es una sociedad, qué es lo que está pasando en la sociedad.
Rebellion, it's necessary in our society. And the fact that I'm a female, you're gonna have to just get over it. We're in sports, we're in the military. We're strong, we're tough, we're brave, we're foolish and reckless, just like the rest of the guys.
So there we have it. We had a clip from Street Heroines. I told you this film was incredible. You saw just a taste of the incredible street art, the incredible visuals, the incredible characters that made this such an extraordinary documentary. We're going to look at some stills. We're going to run some stills while we chat, and then you can just call out if there's something you want to just mention in any of these stills, Alejandra. So, I mean, you have such a huge range of artists from New York through Brazil to Ecuador. How did you find these subjects, and how did you gain access to them?
Yeah, I can give you a little background on this. We're actually looking at an Argentine artist, Fio Silva, and that was a wall that I had shot her in front of. She painted in Miami. But I got involved in the whole sort of graffiti and street art, genre through photography. My background is as a photographer, and back in 2012, when I had the idea to do the film, I was actually out shooting street photography in New York City, over in Long Island City, Queens, and there was this old warehouse called Five Points, and I would go there to see what artists were painting. And that day I came across two women who were painting a wall together, and so that kind of stopped me in my tracks, because I had never considered women to be a part of the movement. And so I sparked up a conversation with them. It turned out one was from the Bronx, one was from Barcelona, and they had just met that day. They had been connected through Facebook, through other graffiti friends. And I just thought that was really cool that I was meeting them on the first day that they were meeting each other. And we just talked about what brought them to this place, what motivated them to get involved in the street art movement, and who their influences were. So after that moment, I just realized that there was so little documentation that existed on the women who were actually out in the streets painting. And, all the documentaries you would see, or even magazines that you would look at, had very, very little, female representation. So I decided that it was going to be, a contribution to highlighting these women and giving them a chance to get their work on a bigger, out in the world on a bigger level.
I mean, these images are just so stunning. I mean, I could rave about them for hours. Just really stunning. I just love street art, and I love what it represents. It's like, I think it was Lady Pink who's like, this is about rebellion. This is about our voice. This is about going to the street with what we want to talk about. And even I love this clip because there's so much peril in this. Like, I know if I tried that, I would probably fall, or trip or something. So, I mean, I know in the film, there are some more sort of dangerous situations involving the police. So tell us about, are there any other moments of just sort of danger and peril in the shooting of this film?
That we encountered, yeah, the most probably nerve-wracking, dangerous experience is captured in the film when we are in Sao Paulo and we're painting or documenting Magrela, the artist there who's painting a wall. And this is during the day, it's during, broad daylight. And all of a sudden we see 3 police cars arrive to where we're painting. And, we kind of had to act like we were there and we, weren't worried about the outcome. I mean, we were painting, or she was painting illegally. And they asked if she had permission to be painting there, which she admitted that she didn't, but it was a place in the neighborhood that she always passed by. It was a really derelict plaza that was full of trash and leaves. And so she was, wanting to put something beautiful and interesting up on the wall to beautify the community. And so that was one of the most crazy experiences we had when we were out shooting with our small team. But also, I mean, I've gone on some night missions with other graffiti artists, both guys and girls. And that itself is scary because, you decide where you want to go. It's a dark alleyway or it's the side of a highway and you are,
carrying equipment,
jump out of your car or go down, the street and you're risking a lot, I suppose, but you want to sort of leave your mark on society. So, I mean, that is really how a lot of these women got started, was doing things illegally, which eventually evolved and they were able to hone their talent. You can see the level of what they're painting on the streets that is now considered street art. And I think that, there's another character, Claw. She's like a pioneering, amazing woman from New York City who tagged all over New York City, leaving her name. And then eventually, she became a fashion entrepreneur. But I loved how she sums it up in the film is graffiti is making something from nothing. And I know that a lot of women within the graffiti world or outside of the graffiti world, we do feel like we have to make something from nothing to prove ourselves. So I think it's a bigger theme throughout the film.
Yeah, I think one of the more tense moments I remember was that scene in Sao Paulo when the police arrived to Magrela, and they asked you to stop filming. Or no, they not. They told you.
Yeah, they said stop.
And I feel like if you hadn't been there filming, things might have gone a little more sideways. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was like our get out of jail free card. The fact that we were from a different country, we were there filming, we were actually trying to say, look, we're doing a documentary to look at graffiti and make people understand that it's actually an important part of society, or street art is an important part of society. And we're trying to capture what these artists are saying. But you're right. I'm not sure, had we not been there, if Magrela would have been able to walk away and not gotten into trouble. And also she had never in, the 10 years before painting in the streets of Sao Paulo, she had never had an encounter with the police like that. So I don't know if we also attracted more eyes because we were a crew, but at the moment too, they're describing that there was this war against people who do the illegal graffiti called pichação in Brazil, and then the street artists, and then the mayor wanting to basically erase all graffiti and street art from any walls in the city. So while they're doing that, we're kind of at the height of this real polemic situation between artists and citizens, and then the government trying to really they're representing this consolidation of power.
Yeah, it's a really harrowing moment. And it's really, hard to believe that the words criminalization and art are in the same sentence, because I don't think they should be, but it's not up to me. But yeah, thank you so much for capturing it and, capturing these incredible women, this incredible art. I feel like there are just so many stories here and so many artists. I feel like you could have made this film could have been twice as long.
Yeah, actually, you're not the first person who's mentioned that. I keep hearing that after people have seen it and they want more. So I take that as a really great sign. And even before I decided to make a feature film, I had been getting in touch and documenting so many female artists that my idea was to make a series. And actually, I did do quite a few, I guess you could say a handful of vignettes, doing these artist portraits and spending time with the artists, documenting them, whether it was in their studio or on the street, and interviewing them. But I got to a point where I realized that there was a bigger story, and the history of women's participation in the movement was not told. So I wanted to start trying to tell that. And obviously it's not like this thing happened and now it's over. No, this is just the beginning. And there are so many stories to continue to tell. And I would love the opportunity to be able to go and do that, to travel to even more places, bigger cities too, and find women and look at, their day to day through the female lens and through art.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, as I mentioned before, this year the Fest is highlighting and curating several special programs. We have a Women's Voices program, we have an Emerging Directors program, we have an Indigenous program, Black Voices. This doc is it straddles several categories. It's a Latina story because most of your artists are Latina women, and it's an emerging, because you're an emerging director, obviously, and yeah, it straddles so many, and it's really I think a winning film. Obviously it won, and for a good reason. But without the proper funding, you wouldn't be able to make this film. Even, imagine shooting these vignettes on your own. Tell us about your funding and how you were able to get some.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would say I had proper funding. I had more than Stuart, who was on previous to me.
Yeah. Zero.
We had zero funding. But it started out definitely as a passion project. And then when I realized that, no, this is becoming bigger than me, we need to get some more, dollars behind this. So we looked at doing the traditional route. I'm part of an awesome documentary club called the Brooklyn Documentary Club in Brooklyn, New York. And so we have filmmakers at all stages of their careers. And that was really insightful to see how people were going about funding their films. And, I wrote a lot of grants, and we didn't get a lot of grants. The grant process is tough too, because you have to wait so long in order to hear if you've received the money or not. And you could be, sitting 3 to 5 months waiting to hear if you can move forward and rent equipment and go out and shoot. And at the same time, you're still trying to keep on top of your subjects and trying to keep, if it's a hot topic and things are happening, you want to be following that as much as possible. So, we realized that maybe it was best to just do our own crowdfunding. And also we did a pop-up fundraiser, because a lot of these artists make art and they donated some of their original artwork, and we were able to auction that off and then, create an event around it to get people together and see the trailer that we had made and hype things up. And that was really helpful. And then we also did a Kickstarter in 2016, and that actually did give us a chunk of money to go back to Brazil and Mexico. We went to Colombia. I was able to bring my producer, who also did my sound for me. I brought on an emerging female cinematographer, Diana Eliazov, who was able to kind of, roll with the punches and scrap it together and shoot beautiful work. And I said too, my producer, Jordan Hawks, was able to pick up the skills to be able to record sound. So, we worked with what we had. We learned a lot along the way. I have a background in production for TV commercials and big production, commercial production companies, but doing a documentary is certainly different. And it's also, when you're a first-time filmmaker, getting people on your side to give you money to go do things, they might, believe in you, but sometimes they don't see the bigger picture until you've had the luxury of going into the edit and putting things together. So, with our fundraising, we did raise a chunk of money, like I said, and we were able to go back and shoot more, and then start putting a work in progress together that we could take around and show. But the funding is really still an anomaly to me. I wish I knew the tricks, but I realize that also, I have to keep my day job and just basically invest in my own project until we felt that it was, in a good spot to get it released. But I also want to say, I have a lot of friends who work in the production world in New York City and beyond, and they were able to give a lot of in-kind donations, whether it was their time or an audio mix or a color session, what have you. So it's definitely been a labor of love that so many people along the way have helped me out. And I've learned a lot. I definitely think, on the next project, I would probably approach it differently and want to make sure that I could secure a budget before moving forward. But, you live and learn, and that's part of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, that's what independent filmmaking is about. You just got to be agile, and you've got to find ways to circumvent not having millions of dollars just sitting in your accounts, and it really shows. And as much as you struggle, this project is yours 100%. Like, you steered it along, the routes that you wanted with your voice, and this is your project, and that's great. That's a great victory, as well as winning. So what are your next steps with the project? I mean, you're doing the festival circuit.
So we're still on, we have a few more festivals that we're going to be attending. The next one is in Barcelona. It's called the DART Festival, and it's all about documentaries that look at contemporary art. So we're really excited to be able to do an in-person screening with them. But we are still looking for distribution. So again, like I said, this is my first feature film, and the way we can go about distribution is like, it's such a new world. It's like the wild, wild west in terms of streaming and what have you. But we are looking for the right home for this film, because we want to get it out there to the world. We think it's super impactful and powerful. So we're looking for distributors, and then and whether that comes direct to distributors or through a sales rep, we're open to conversations. And then in terms of festivals, I'm still just so shocked that we won Best Documentary, and I'm hoping that it opens some more doors, and we'll look into continuing the festival run through 2022. We want to obviously take this to Brazil and to Mexico, because those places have such a huge role in the film. And then we are, pitching our Street Heroines 2.0 doc series idea, where we can take this to many, many geographic regions around the world and create, a seasonal format on going into these big cities and meeting up with these artists and looking at all the cultural curiosities that those places have to offer, again, but through the female lens.
Right. Well, that's great that you're doing the fest circuit. I think that festivals serve so many purposes. I mean, it's not just a place for people, cinephiles, to see great films and they're like-minded people. It's really a platform for helping female filmmakers and all sorts of filmmakers to get the exposure that they need for the work, and especially to get that sales agent, get a distribution deal. And it's so great that you have a platform like this and these other festivals. And I don't know what these distributors and sales agents are doing dilly-dallying, because they should snatch this film up like right now. Well, seriously.
Exactly. You're so right, Geisha Marie. You're so right. It's definitely one not to be missed. I don't know why they're sleeping on it.
Yeah, I mean, if I had that deal with so and so, but yeah, if only I had that kind of money and those kinds of deals. But again, it's been so great speaking to you, Alexandra. I did a Q&A, and we spoke a few weeks back, so there's a longer form of our Q&A about Street Heroines, also featuring her subject, Mexican street artist Fusca. I love saying that name. That's like the best name ever, Fusca. Check it out. Interesting stuff about what it is like working as a female street artist, and just other stuff about the film. Please check it out. In the meantime, Alexandra, why don't you shout out your socials so people can see more info about Street Heroines?
Absolutely. So you can follow us at Street Heroines. That is our handle on Instagram. And then we also have a Twitter account, which I'm trying to be more active with Twitter, because I feel like it's a fun way to keep in touch with film communities. So that's also at Street Heroines. And then our website is streetheroinesfilm.com. You can go and check out the next screenings that are lined up. You can also sign up for our newsletter and follow us that way, and shoot us an email at streetheroines@gmail.com if you want to get in touch.
Well, thanks again, Alexandra. Thanks so much for joining the Q&A today. Thanks for sending your film into the Portland Film Fest, and congrats again for winning Best Doc.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Josh and to Jen and to Diane and Gesha Marie. You guys have been fantastic. Best of luck for next year's. I know it's just getting bigger and better. And we will never, ever forget Portland. It will be a very, very special place in my heart. So thanks again. And congratulations to all the other filmmakers.
Awesome, thanks. Moving right along, we are speaking to our next filmmaker, another female filmmaker, the director of Gen 28, Jessica. She'll be joining us soon, and we'll be taking a look at a clip from her film, Gen 28. Yeah, we're just going to cue it up in a moment. We have a little tech issue. Actually, I misspoke. You know, I'm just so... I think we're looking at a clip from The Unhealer. My bad. I'm sorry.
Go, give me the ball. Remember.
Hey, talk to your boys.
About what?
Don't worry about it.
Boys, bring it in. Come here. What's going on?
By Sean Harris.
Hi.
Hi, sorry with a little snafu there, the mix-up.
That's okay. That was fine. I liked it.
Oh, you liked it?
I've seen the trailer so many times. It was nice to see a part of the movie again.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, how often do you actually get a chance to do that, to look at your own film after you put it into the festival circuit?
All the time.
You can't get enough of your own work, huh?
Yeah, I saw it. I just did a film festival in New York, the Philip K. Film Festival in New York. So that was live. So that was a lot of fun. We got to go there. And then I came back from Jerome, Arizona and watched the film. So I'm watching the film a lot. But
Wait, is this a Philip K. Dick Fest?
yes, Philip K. Dick Fest.
Oh my God. Where would the film business be without Philip K. Dick, right?
That's exactly right. It was such an honor to be there. We won Best Feature Film or Science Fiction Film. And it was in Times Square, which was, a lot of fun to go there. We had a blast.
So let's get into your film, The Unhealer. Sure. Is this your own IP or is this an adaptation?
This is our own. I wrote it along with my writing partner quite a few years ago. We did our first draft in 2007. So what is that? Almost 15 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Spent a lot of years. We almost raised the money back in 2010, but then we had the problems with the financial crisis and everybody pulled their money back. So we had to wait. And finally in 2018, we pulled the money together. We raised it. Some of it we raised, a lot of family money, a lot of credit cards. And very happy to be here.
Well, there's certainly the labor of love, a passion project, but it's really interesting that you mentioned that, are actually very key, because the independent film world, independent filmmakers, so much of it is just about getting that funding together. And I always, ask that question. Thanks for sort of starting that the subject off. Do you have anything else to add? Was this an equity? Did you get any equity or hedge funds?
Yeah, filmmakers are always interested in hearing about how get the money together. That's kind of why I threw that there in the front. My sister was instrumental. She's also a producer on the film, Christy Harris. And she had connections with some real estate money and people who were interested in getting involved in making a film. So that really kind of started it. Once we got that push, I was able to raise some money. I had some money, family had some money. We all kind of pooled it together. And then we met the right people. One of the reasons we got it going is because who we involved in it, Martine Gigi and Massimo Zero, our DP, and then our producers, really helped out. Galen Walker did Mutant Ninja Turtles. So we had like some clout going. So that way, once we had that and them involved, the money said, hey, you know, you guys are for real. Because believe me, there's a lot of people that sting unknowing financiers, and then they never get a movie. So everybody was very excited when we actually finished a movie, and it was good. So that's kind of how the whole thing went. And then when we went through post, after we filmed the whole thing and had it edited, we realized that we still needed more money. You know, always do, right? I wanted a little bit better sound than we had, so we had to put more money and go back into the sound stage. We got some big songs in it, so you know, I wanted to make sure we had some good production value with music, recognizable songs. That's why we got the Stabbing Westward song at the end, and we had the Platters at the beginning, kind of to bookend the production value on that. So you know, you do what you got to do, and you spend the money it needs. And every movie, I guess, takes whatever it takes. I mean,
well, congratulations again. This is what a 14-year process, and you stuck with it. I mean, that's really like the intrepid indie spirit. Yeah, and I noticed, so on this project, you are credited as a producer and the writer.
That's correct.
As a fellow writer, I'm a screenwriter. I love talking to writers. I feel like, you know, in these Q&As, they typically don't invite the writers on, so I'm so glad to speak to you. But because you are the producer as well, I'm just really curious, at various points in the production, did the producer, Sean Harris, and the screenwriter, Sean Harris, or did they not see eye to eye?
Yeah, we argued a little bit. I know that I had to lose one of my scenes that I felt were pivotal in the movie because we couldn't afford to shoot it. There's a scene in the movie where our hero / anti-hero jumps out of a car going, let's say, 45 miles an hour. I had originally written that he jumped off a bridge, and I had blocked the whole thing in my mind and how we're going to do it. But it's not so easy to get permits to shoot on a bridge, and then they don't want anything to fall in the water. And so all the obstacles just got too big, and we had to dump it. So the writer, Sean, was not happy, but the producer just said, pull the trigger and say, you can't do it.
And did this happen before you started principal photography, or?
From the start, when we had our production meeting a few days before we're going to shoot, you know, pre-production and our production meeting, all the other producers, we had plenty, came up to me and said, we just can't do that shot, Sean. I don't see how we're going to do that. It's a whole day, and our shoot is only 18 days, and you don't want to go to 19. What else we're going to cut? And that's when I realized, well, I'll consider it. So I just said, we'll consider it, and kept working behind the scenes to get my bridge jumping thing. It just never materialized, and I couldn't go back and shoot it. You know, in an independent project, you just don't have enough money to keep shooting and get the whole crew back together. I mean, we barely made it. We barely got it in the can. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, it's always, you know, that's the part of being a producer. You have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being a creative person, you're wearing so many hats, and you just have to serve the production, right?
Right. I learned a lot by that too. I learned that you don't have to be married to a certain scene. You know, you can find different ways to attack it. Before, all my screenplays were probably $10 or $20 million screenplays. Now I can write something that be clever enough to write something smaller, because you can't get those movies anymore independently.
Yeah, the biz has definitely changed. But before we get more into that, let's take a look at another clip from the film, The Unhealer.
Okay.
I hope you like seeing this clip again, huh?
Check it out, boys. It's the human garbage disposal.
You're not sick because of the flu, Kelly. You're sick because of your eating disorder. You're malnourished. I think it's time that Kelly talk to someone.
Just give me the healing power to take the pain away. Heal this woman.
It's a miracle.
Yes.
I have no more pain.
Is there anyone here that could use my gift?
Healing doesn't belong to you. Give the medicine back.
I used to be a nobody, and now I'm gonna live forever.
Kelly, there's someone here to see you.
We're gonna make you better.
Are you okay?
That's so cool. Something awesome happened to me after Fluger healed me. I'm invincible.
Oh my God. We've got to keep this between us.
You don't have any other superpowers, do you?
You can't hurt me.
Oh, I bet I can, Trash.
Amazing. Feel free to beat me up anytime.
I thought Brad ran him over.
Were you the kid who got hit by the car?
Yeah.
You don't look like you got hurt at all.
I was very lucky.
I told you not to mess with him. He's a freak.
One bullet down.
3 to go.
Revenge is wrong.
But I have to.
Kelly has something that is ours. I have come to get it back.
Calm down, Kelly. Bad temper will only get you into trouble.
Now who's ready?
I'm ready, Trash Boy.
You don't know what you're dealing with.
I want to see that.
Well, there we go. We're just gonna keep playing clips from your film, and we'll do this whole Q&A with that. That's great. It's riveting. Do you usually work in this genre, in sci-fi genre, as a writer?
More thriller kind of things, really, as a writer. But I do like horror. I do like sci-fi. It's hard for me to call it a sci-fi, really. I think of more of a Star Wars kind of thing when I think of sci-fi, but it has been categorized sci-fi, and it does have science fiction elements, maybe supernatural would be better, maybe. It's a bit of a cross genre, which does cause us a little trouble with the sales because it's not straight horror, whatever.
So let's speaking of sales, what is going on with the film right now? Are you looking for distribution still, or doing the festival circuit?
I'm doing both. We do have sales agent involved, and Shout Factory is representing us in the U.S. and Canada. We've sold some of our foreign territories. We're still looking to sell the rest of the world. VMI is our sales agent. But meanwhile, I really like the festival circle. I think you can really get your name out there. These are my kind of people. I've done many shorts as well and played festivals. So it's fun to hang out. I mean, I wish this was live. It'd be a whole different kind of feeling. But there's nothing like getting a good grassroots campaign and getting people watch your movie that, they're similar to yours.
Yeah, festivals or film festivals are so great. I love festivals. I mean, I've worked at them before, and I'm so happy to be involved with Portland Film Fest this year. They're so exuberant, and everyone there is just so psyched and so jazzed to be, meeting with filmmakers, talking, seeing these great things. This year, still a pandemic, we have to approximate that online virtually as much as we can. But it's not the same, but it's still fun nevertheless. We have this Q&A for us to chat.
You guys done a great job. This is so nice. It's the best virtual I've seen. And we've been in festivals now for about a year. So this is really professional. I like it. I wish I had done better getting all my clips together.
Oh, well, I mean, it works out. We're seeing some great clips. We're chatting. That's what I think viewers want. And we're just trying to give you a platform to talk about your work, to maybe catch the eye of, distribution company or whatever helps you platform your film and go to the next steps. So speaking of that, are you more beholden now to the producer hat or the writer hat? Or are you going to keep doing both?
I've been writing like crazy, especially during COVID. I'm actually working on a rom-com, which is quite the opposite of this. Right. And I also have another thriller. It's that I'm excited about, that I've got it. I'm ready to write it, but I've got to finish my rom-com. I hope to do it if I finish a couple weeks. I have a goal. I work at least 3 hours a day writing, or 3 pages. I got to get to one of the, make those 2 goals. And if I do that, I figure I can write about 3 to 4 screenplays a year. But so I'm more of a writer at heart, but I will most likely direct my next movie, as long as it's not too huge, because I was involved with this since the start, all the way through editing, in the sound stage and everything, and I loved every minute of it. So I realized I need to be closer to the director side than the producer side.
Right. So as the writer, the development and writing process, as a producer, and then you're involved in post, like this film is your baby. This film is really your favorite.
Good or bad, I'll take the credit or the blame. I had a lot of help though. I can't take all the credit. I mean, our director and producers did so much, and everybody in the crew was fantastic, and the actors. Oh my God. This is a SAG and DGA project, so it cost
I see.
a little bit more than you want a low budget movie to cost. But the acting, I think, is just fantastic, and I think Elijah, who plays the kid in the movie, he's a huge TikTok star, and he will certainly be a big star someday. And the girl that plays Dominique, actually, am working on another project with her, the sequel. So we written a sequel and a prequel already, and we're considering a television series on it. So, I don't know if these things will happen because you know how financing is, but we're pretty excited.
Right. Well, fantastic. I mean, it's, you've created some great IP, and you could have, a franchise or a series, because it is your original content. It's not a Philip K. Dick adaptation.
We own it, so we're able to do what we want to with it, which is unusual.
Yeah, it's great to own your own IP. But you also mentioned that your next project will be a director. Will this be your debut as a director?
Yes. Well, on a feature.
Feature, okay.
I've directed short films and whatnot.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic to hear that. I'm so glad to hear about your next projects. If you'd like to shout out the socials for The Unhealer, please do so. I'm sure you'll follow.
You can get us hashtag The Unhealer, but it's on Facebook. It's The Unhealer Movie. Instagram is The Unhealer Film, and Twitter is The Unhealer, because we couldn't get The Unhealer on all of them because people had already taken it. I was a little slow on the uptake. If you've seen the movie, please rate us on IMDb. I don't know how everybody else follows this, but IMDb is extremely important on your ratings these days. Distributors will look at it and decide whether they want to carry your movie or not. So vote.
Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, and as many resources as possible to help filmmakers get out there. It's great to know that. So thank you so much, Sean, for sending The Unhealer to the Portland Film Fest. Thanks for joining us in this Q&A. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate being involved in the Portland Film Festival. It's been awesome. I've seen so many great films. It's quite an honor to be in the list.
So many great films. Well, best wishes to you and The Unhealer for distribution on your next projects.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, Sean. Well, we're coming down to the final, 20 minutes of this Q&A, sadly. FYI, if I haven't mentioned, the fest is not over yet. You can still buy tickets. All the films that we've mentioned today, the filmmakers, please check these films out. You can still buy them and gift them, as well as visit the Portland Film Fest website to buy merch, awesome totes, really cute t-shirts. Don't forget, the fest is still going. We're going to speak to our next guest very soon and take a look at a clip from her film. The film is Gen 28, and the filmmaker is Jessica Sharples, and we'll be speaking to her shortly. Let's take a look at this trailer.
Hello. My name is Jessica Sharples, and I am the writer, producer, and star of Gen 28. Gen 28 is based on my personal survivor story, but it is also a every woman's story. We start with Jen and Adam as they come home from their first date. They stumble into Adam's apartment, so let's see what happens next. Please know that there is a trigger warning for sexual violence. Sit back, relax, and please enjoy Gen 28.
Hello, Jessica.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Welcome to the Portland Film Fest.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you having us and setting up everything. It's been such a great month of awesome films.
Yeah, so many great films. Just 325 shorts and feature-length docs, narrative films, so much, to look at. I've been really busy this month watching films. It's really great. But Thanks for sending your film to this fest. This film is is just so of the moment, and it's so great. Gen
you.
28, I think later on we'll take a look at an actual clip from the film. If we have that queued up. But in the moment, this film, as I said, is so of the moment because this is a really film about those boundaries. It's about consent, about a lot of the things we're talking about. This was curated in the Emerging Voices, the section of the fest, the Women's Voices. Tell us why you wrote and directed this short.
Yeah, so I did not direct it. I can't take that credit. My director, Ian Landry, no, it's okay. She's in Taiwan, so it's 4 a.m. for her, so she wasn't able to hop on this call, sadly. But I am the writer, producer, and star of Gen 28, and I wrote this film because I was trying to figure out what happened to me in my own scenario that I experienced. And because it's very confusing, you see all these stories on TV and movies and even the news about very obvious sexual assault or rape, sexual violence situations. And so what happened to me was a little bit more gray, one would say, just because I gave consent at first and then took it away. And obviously consent is a conversation throughout the entire dance that you do with this other person. So nothing is ever final.
Right.
And that's why I was wrestling with it. So I wrote Gen 28 to kind of figure out for myself, okay, what was this? Was it miscommunication? Like what happened here? And then it was really clear what it was, after I wrote this film. So I started writing it because of that. But then as it developed, I just kept finding out that so many women that I knew in my life had also experienced something similar. So I really wanted to make this film to raise awareness around this issue and show that it's very, very common, like much more common than anybody thinks, unfortunately, really. And I wanted to open the conversation of consent. And you see Jen and Adam, the survivor and the perpetrator, actually start to have a conversation by the end of it. But they don't finish it. So they just kind of say their two sides and you hear where they're at. And then my goal is for the audience to actually finish that conversation of consent after watching Gen 28. So hopefully it sparks some conversations amongst viewers.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing I liked about this film that I liked such a great deal was that you do incorporate and make allowance for that gray area. Like these moments and these dynamics can be at times gray and misinterpretations. I mean, otherwise, if not, we would have seen like a much more sort of didactic piece of filmmaking. And I know that that's, as a writer, as an actor, producer, you're trying to actually create these compelling and riveting stories. And it's so great that you are taking this personal experience of yours and using it to write this story and also produce it and act in it. So what was that like, being Jessica the actor, Jessica the writer, Jessica the producer, all in one short?
Yeah, I don't know that I could ever do all of that again. It was a great learning experience, and I learned so much about film. Like, you need to have insurance, and there's just so many other things that people don't really think about. Because I've been an actor forever. I went to NYU's Tisch School for acting, so that's my main career and what I've been going after the longest. But I've also been a writer ever since I was little. I would write down my dreams into little novels. So I've been an actor writer just in my bones forever. So I'm going to continue writing, but the producing side of it is just, I'm good at it, but I don't want to do it. It's just too stressful. There are too many balls in the air. And I will say it was difficult being on set, trying to separate, when we actually had to, drop down into the moment, separating myself from, okay, I'm not going to worry about production anymore. I'm going to let my line producer handle that. I'm going to focus on acting, and really trying to just turn my brain off and not think about oh, it's time for dinner. Oh, we need to give people a break. It's very difficult to balance all of it, but this was my child. Gen 28 is the first film that I've written and produced and run the festival circuit with. So it was really a labor of love, as you've been saying with the other filmmakers. And also it was really important for me to, get that story out there, open this conversation of consent, tell an every woman's story, and tell it from the female perspective, because, most men in the, or most writers, and I'll just say writers right now in the entertainment industry, are men. And so it's hard for them to write from the female perspective, especially in this very specific circumstance. So I really wanted to show hey, this is how, a woman can feel in this circumstance. This is, you focus on Jen the whole time. Afterwards, even like beginning. So I really wanted the audience to be in her shoes and kind of walk through that process with her. So I will continue writing. I will continue writing from the female perspective. I will continue acting in my pieces, but I am just going to leave the production and the producing to the professionals. They can do that from now on.
Right. This is a very character-driven piece. And that's, what makes it so compelling. And I think we need to look at another clip from the film, or actually our first clip from Gen 28. I think it'll be queued up shortly.
Fantastic.
I'm starving.
We can walk there if you want.
Oh, I've been dying to break out these Adventure Time onesies. You've heard of Adventure Time, right? Like the cartoon? I call Finn. Yumi the dog.
That was one of the clips from Gen 28. And I think, I remember watching this, I was like, gosh, this guy, he's such a man baby,
Yeah.
No, I mean, just
a man child.
Yeah, he's a man child, just like, oh, look at my toys, like, or like Timmy when he's 7 and he's showing you his toys. It's a really interesting eye and a slight satire on, men and dating.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even not really a satire. That's actually what happened to me in my specific situation. So like after the whole thing happened to me, the guy was totally oblivious, and he was like, I just got these new onesies in. Do you want to go grab a slice of pizza down the street wearing these onesies? And I was obviously like, as you can see in the film, because that scene happens right after the assault. So she's like very much in shock. And so was I. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, sure, we'll wear these onesies. And we're like on the streets of New York at like 2 a.m. in a pizza shop. And it was so bizarre. I was like, it was just so, I don't know, it's very like an out of body experience. And I was like, this needs to be in the film. Like, we have to do this. But it was really interesting because Adventure Time, you have like the little boy and then you have his dog. And so literally it was like wearing that dog onesie also has that second, that like subtextual meaning to it. So, kind of men in general, no offense guys, but there's a lot of really bad programming out there for men as far as like media, what you guys are taught in TV and film. And just kind of like thinking about there's a lot of men coming first in the patriarchy and thinking about themselves. So to be so oblivious to the other person and what they're feeling and just being like, yeah, let's go get a slice of pizza. Let's wear these onesies. Was just really bizarre. So I'm glad I got to put that in the film. And the scene that happens after that kind of just shows a very just like surreal kind of scene, which I think is really impactful.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of sorrow in this film. And I think that shot really captures her sorrow and her alienation from someone who should be a mate or someone she could actually talk to. I know this is a very personal story, and the person with whom you had this encounter, the encounter which inspired this film, do you know if, I don't know if you're in touch with them, have they seen the film? Would you like this person to see this film?
Yeah, I've had that a lot of people have asked me that actually. And I am not in contact with him. After the whole situation happened, I blocked him on all of social media channels. But somehow he was able to reach out to me a few years afterwards, being like, just want to say I'm really sorry for what happened. Like, I've learned a lot. I've grown as a person. Like, this has really changed me. And so that's the only contact I've had with him. That was a few years ago. And I don't know, I'm kind of torn whether to be like, hey, look at this. Maybe you'll have a deeper understanding. Or, I mean, I feel like the chapter is kind of closed as well. Right. So I'm not sure for my own healing, if I just want to like move on instead of reopening that, because me writing the film and producing it, obviously like reopen that can of worms in one way. So I have not. And yeah, I don't know if I'm going to.
Well, that's really interesting. an interesting intersection of, as a writer, writing about your own personal experience. So you have Jessica, the woman who experienced such a thing, Jessica, the writer who wrote this, the producer on this film, and also the lead role. So I mean, imagine, you know, that the producer, actor, and writer would be really interested in his response, but the actual you is like blocked still, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, you know, it's great that you mentioned, you know, the way sexual assault is treated in film. I don't know if you know the Blacklist, you know, they've done these surveys of films, and they did this one survey, and they basically counted the number of rape scenes in spec features. And it's like some crazy number, but it's all of these, like the way that people are gratuitously just throw in a sexual assault in a film. Have you come across this study, or have you heard about these like ridiculous ways that people just, like a car explosion, oh, let's throw in a you know?
Right. Yeah. I actually, my first feature film that I acted in when I was a freshman, I had just finished my freshman year at NYU. And it was an independent film that was shot in Brooklyn. And initially my character was supposed to go through a rape scene. And when I was cast, I asked the director, I was like, what is the point of this? Like, this doesn't develop the character. Like you have a lot of violence already in this film. Like, why does this have to happen? And he actually ended up taking it out, which I was really, you know, happy with. But yeah, there's literally no reason for it. So, and also it's usually just portrayed in like an unrealistic way. So that's why I wanted, another reason for Gen 28 was to show like, hey, these are the more common forms of sexual assault. Most victims are survivors, know their perpetrators ahead of time. It's not some, you know, dark alleyway and a stranger pops out of a dumpster, you know, like that's not really how it happens. And I feel like that's how film and TV portrays it a lot of time too. And there's just no substance when they do it that way. Like, what are you saying? What's your message that you're trying to put across? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a message or a reason for doing that, you're just degrading women for no reason. And again, that is like, I don't think that a female writer would ever put that into a script just for kicks, ever. Right. So that's why we need to have more female voices and more screenplays written by female writers, so we can actually get, you know, the true female experience across, and leave that to the experts as far as women writers go. And men, you can keep your male perspective.
I mean, this is, you know, one of the purposes of indie cinema is to focus things in the way, you know, the mainstream doesn't. But let's take a look at another clip from Gen 28, and we'll see when it goes.
So tell me, how the hell are you still single?
I guess I was just over being let down. I'd go on a couple dates with a guy, we'd hook up. 2 months later, I'd realize he didn't have any interest in me as a person, so I said, fuck that. I got off the dating scene, focused on my music, and here I am.
Oh, they're missing out.
What about you, Mr. Onesie Mogul? What are you looking for?
Someone to be the other half of my couple.
Trouble.
Power couple. I want someone who's just as passionate about their career as I am, you know? Walk into a room with her, turn heads.
That was a clip from Gen 28. Let's walk us through that. That's in the early part of the date, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take the audience on a journey of being in Jen's shoes. So the whole point is that this date has been going really well. It's their first one. They were set up by a mutual friend, so there's a lot of trust already instilled in their, you know, relationship. And the date's going great. They're connecting. Like, she just sang him a song on the piano. They're really opening up to one another. So that just makes it even more shocking when it turns into an assault, because you really like are rooting for these characters. You're like, oh, this is really sweet. This is really lovely. One of my friends even said it was like eerily mundane. He's like, this is eerily mundane. This whole date, like this could be anybody. And I'm like, exactly. It could be anybody. It could be any date. And then it could turn at any moment, with the prevalence of sexual assault in our society, unfortunately. But that was a journey we wanted to take everybody on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mundane, but it felt connected in a way. I mean, it's so hard to render romantic dynamics and romantic attraction just through dialogue, and that's a great scene for that. We have one more clip that we'd love to look at from Gen 28.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You sure? All right, seriously, I mean, come on, what's going on?
It's nothing.
Do you not feel well, or?
I don't know.
All right, let's get you something to eat. That should help.
I'm not hungry.
Why didn't you say anything?
I did.
Hey, Jen, get off me!
So that was another clip from Gen 28. You know, it's a great character moment because after this horrible thing has happened to her, she's walking around in a yellow onesie, and he's such a dope. How did the actor feel? I mean, whoever you cast, how did he feel about playing this kind of character, this kind of guy?
Yeah, Bobby Slasky is incredible. Anybody looking for his type of role, hire him. He's absolutely amazing. He played it so well, and he's such a nice guy too. So, to put him in this role was, I don't think that's him as a natural person. So he did a great job with it. And he was actually really sweet. He was checking in with me a lot, on both shooting days, whenever we had like a really intense moment or during the assault scene or later in the scene that you just play, like we end up yelling at each other. And that was very triggering for me. And he would check in just being like, hey, are you okay? Like, do you need to take a break? What's going on? And my director, Ian Landre, was also amazing at that too, constantly checking in. So, he handled it really well and super professional the entire time. So I know he definitely, he didn't even watch the assault scene until we had our virtual premiere with all of our Indiegogo donors. He actually, when I sent it to him, apparently he had like fast forwarded through that scene. So I don't think he, wanted to watch it, and then finally watched it before we had our Q&A at our premiere. And I know it was really hard for him to watch that for sure. It wasn't, it wasn't nothing to him, which I think speaks to him as a person and his true character.
Yeah. So I take it you did not have an intimacy coordinator, or that you were your own intimacy coordinator.
Yeah, we were definitely our own intimacy coordinator. Luckily, we're in the scene, in the assault scene, like the whole thing is that it's supposed to be, they're basically still dressed, she's still like, I'm still wearing my dress. He's still wearing his pants. So like, we didn't have any sort of issues with like contact that way. But yeah, we just kind of did it ourselves. And I didn't even think about having an intimacy coordinator on set. I think that would have been helpful, but as you can see in the film too, we don't get a lot of, we got a lot of like shots of like his back and mostly my face. So we didn't really need to show a lot of like our bodies in that. Whereas I think if we were getting different kinds of coverage in that scene, maybe it would have been more necessary to have an intimacy coordinator. But yeah, it was just me, Ian, the director, and Bobby kind of working that all out together, which was interesting.
That's great to hear. I've heard other stories like that. Another film that was in the fest, which actually won a Best Narrative Feature, China, a film from South Africa, Zimbabwe, and it's about a sexual assault as well. And the director, she sort of drew on her own personal experience of this sort of thing in directing that scene. And she said, they didn't have an intimacy coordinator, but all the women and all the crew were so in touch with this subject matter and so sensitive to it that it's like the entire crew was like an intimacy coordinator for the scene. So it sounds similar if you have supportive people. And the people you trust and work with, that helps you in these difficult moments.
Yeah, and I also think that having our fully female executive team was really great too. Like our DP was a female, the director, our line producer. So I think that having a lot of women on set also led to it being a more like sensitive and like emotionally in tune vibe, if you will.
Yeah, this is exactly what the director Shina said. It's similar thing, and I was so glad to hear it because her lead, she's like a 16-year-old girl, I was just very concerned about her for being in that scene. But I think we have one more clip because we love this film and we love to show you clips of it and we love talking to you. So we're gonna yeah, we have one more before we wrap up.
You
So
live
another
here? Your startup must be making bank.
Sold out half our inventory last month.
Your place is gorgeous.
You're gorgeous.
Is that your line, smooth talker?
It depends. At work?
Yeah, again, your lead actor, he plays it so well. There's no minister. He's just this like clueless man baby. And this, I'm sorry if I'm wrong. Tell me, you know. But
no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I just love the word man baby because usually I think of man child, but man baby is even better. It's even better.
You have to stop me. I can't stop using it. Yeah, he just plays it so well, and it just changes the entire thing because you think she's going into this really. There's no danger, there's no peril there, but that's not right. So that's really, you have a great eye for this material, and it's very personal. We thank you so much for sending it to the festival and for being, you know, vulnerable enough to make this film.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, it's been great. What are your next steps with this project?
Yeah, so we're at the end of our festival run. Gen 28 has gotten into 33 film festivals this year, which has been amazing. We won 13 awards with 12 nominations. It's just been incredible. So we have a couple more to hear from until the end of the year is up. And then honestly, I'm just going to be releasing it on YouTube and Vimeo. My goal for this is to get people to see it. I want people to share it with one another. I want women to see it and share it with each other. I want parents to share it with their sons and with their daughters. And the best way to do that is just to make it free and public. So that's the plan for Gen 28. And then personally, I'm working on writing my first feature film, which also talks about sexual assault, but in more of a Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein kind of story. Yeah, and talking about, I met a woman who was a survivor of like one of those kinds of high, powerful people. And yeah, it was a very deep and disturbing story that I was like, how do people not know that this is happening? Must raise more awareness. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for my next project. And again, bringing that female perspective, telling it from the perspective of the survivors, and hopefully, you know, raising awareness and shining a light on these issues that are, you know, avoidable. It doesn't have to happen. Sexual assault does not have to happen. That is a completely avoidable thing in this world. And a lot of things are not unavoidable. So anything that we can do to improve the lives of every man, woman, and child, let's do it. Why not? What's stopping us? So yeah, thanks Portland Film Festival for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your festival. This has been fantastic, Isha Marie.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, there are way too many stories like this, but, you know, we've got to keep talking about them and, you know, using these stories to, you know, make these conversations happen. So thanks again for submitting your film to the Portland Film Fest. I still look out for your next film, your next short. It's been great having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
So it looks like we're wrapping up the Portland Film Fest Meet the Director Q&A. It's our last one, my last one. I'm so verklempt. I've so loved hosting these series on Saturdays, talking to these great filmmakers, seeing these great films, and letting you, you know, get a bird's eye into what it takes to be a great independent filmmaker. We look forward to next year. The fest is still going. You can still buy tickets, buy merch at portlandfilmfest.com. PDXFF.com, and you can still check out the Fest webpage for info on our sponsor. Again, we can't forget to thank Comcast for its 5th consecutive year of tremendous support. This year they have this really cool thing. If you have the Xfinity remote, you can just speak into it, Portland Film Fest, and it'll just pull the fest right up onto your monitor, your device. It's really great. Again, portlandfilm.org. Buy tickets, merch, find out more info. My name is Geisha Marie Bland. I'm a New York-based screenwriter. It's been my pleasure. You can find me at GM Gecko on Instagram or Twitter. And until next year, thanks so much, independent film community.